Fat Priyanka Chopra, The Power of Being Alone, Unleash Your Inner Strength and Confidence, walking onto stage with confident stride, pausing at center stage, making eye contact with audience. You know, I was 17 years old when I won Miss World, and everyone thought I had it all figured out. The crown, the glamour, the cameras flashing everywhere I went. But here's what nobody saw. I went home that night to an empty hotel room in London, sat on the edge of my bed, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of being alone. I was terrified of never being alone again. Pause for effecti, that moment changed everything for me. Because in that silence, in that solitude, I discovered something that no crown, no title, no external validation could ever give me. I discovered the power of being alone with myself. And tonight, I want to share that power with you. Look around this room. Every single person here has felt it. That moment when you're by yourself and instead of embracing it, you reach for your phone, turn on the TV, call someone. We do anything to fill the silence. We've become a generation that's afraid of our own company. We've forgotten that being alone isn't loneliness. It's freedom. It's not isolation. It's liberation. And it's certainly not weakness. It's where your greatest strength lies. I want to tell you something that might surprise you. Some of the most successful, confident, and genuinely happy people I know, from Oprah Winfrey to Barack Obama, from my own mother to the security guard who works nights at my building in New York, they all have one thing in common. They've mastered the art of being alone. Not just physically alone, but comfortable in their own skin, confident in their own thoughts, and completely at peace with who they are when nobody else is watching. Moving closer to audience, see, my journey with this hasn't been easy. I grew up in India where family means everything, where being alone is often seen as sad or strange. Then I moved to America as a teenager, and suddenly I was alone in ways I never expected. New country, new culture, new language nuances, new everything. I could have let that aloneness break me. Instead, I let it make me. I remember my first apartment in New York when I was trying to make it in Hollywood. It was tiny, and I mean tiny. You could probably fit it in most people's walk-in closets. But it was mine. Every evening I'd come home from auditions where I'd been told I was too ethnic, too foreign, too different, and I'd sit in that little space and I'd have to face the truth of who I was without anyone else's opinions clouding my vision. Those nights alone taught me something crucial. Your relationship with yourself is the longest relationship you'll ever have. You're going to be with you for your entire life. So you better learn to like your own company. You better learn to trust your own judgment. You better learn to find strength in your own presence. A pause, walking across stage. But let's be honest, our culture tells us the opposite, doesn't it? We're told that success means being busy, being social, being connected every second of the day. We measure our worth by how many people want to be around us, how many followers we have, how many invitations we get. We've made being alone synonymous with being lonely, and that's one of the most damaging myths of our time. I want to distinguish between loneliness and aloneness because they're completely different experiences. Loneliness is a feeling, it's that ache for connection, that sense that you're missing something. You can feel lonely in a room full of people. I've felt lonely on red carpets surrounded by hundreds of photographers and fans. Loneliness is about disconnection. But aloneness is a choice. It's a state of being. It's when you consciously decide to spend time with yourself, to sit with your thoughts, to process your experiences, to connect with who you really are beneath all the roles you play for other people. Aloneness is about connection with yourself. And here's what I've learned. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot love others deeply if you don't love yourself. You cannot be confident in relationships if you're not confident alone. You cannot find your voice in a crowd if you haven't found it in silence. Hi, stopping center stage, more intimate tone. Let me share something personal with you. There was a period in my career when I was working 18-hour days, flying between 3 different countries for shoots, attending events every night. My calendar was packed solid for months in advance. I looked successful, I looked busy, I looked important, but I was empty inside. I was so busy being who everyone else needed me to be that I forgot who I actually was. It took a health scare to make me stop. The doctor told me I needed to rest, really rest, for several weeks. No work, no events, no commitments. Just me. And I panicked. I actually panicked at the thought of being still, being quiet, being alone with myself for that long. What would I do? What would I think about? Who was I when I wasn't performing for someone else? Those weeks of forced solitude became the most transformative period of my life. In that silence, I rediscovered my dreams, not the ones that had been shaped by others' expectations, but my own authentic desires. I remembered why I fell in love with acting in the first place. I reconnected with parts of myself I'd neglected: my love for reading, my curiosity about psychology, my desire to produce meaningful content. Most importantly, I learned to enjoy my own company. I started taking myself on dates to museums, to bookstores, to restaurants I'd always wanted to try. I started journaling, really writing down my thoughts without censoring them. I started meditating, not because it was trendy, because I craved that connection with my inner voice. And something magical happened. The more comfortable I became with being alone, the more confident I became in every other area of my life. When you know yourself deeply, when you trust yourself completely, when you enjoy your own company genuinely, you show up differently in the world, engaging with different sections of audience. Think about the most confident person you know. I bet they're comfortable in their own skin. I bet they don't need constant validation from others. I bet they make decisions based on their own inner compass rather than what others think they should do. That confidence doesn't come from being popular or busy or constantly surrounded by people. It comes from having spent quality time alone, getting to know themselves, and learning to trust their own judgment. Now I want to talk about something that might make some of you uncomfortable: the fear of being judged for being alone. We live in a society that pities the person eating alone at a restaurant, that assumes something's wrong if you go to a movie by yourself, that thinks you're antisocial if you prefer a quiet evening at home to a loud party. But here's a perspective shift for you. When you see someone confidently doing things alone, what you're actually seeing is someone who has learned to validate themselves. You're seeing someone who doesn't need external approval to enjoy life. You're seeing someone who has developed such a strong relationship with themselves that they don't require an audience for every experience. I remember the first time I went to a fancy restaurant alone in Mumbai. I was maybe 22, and the hostess kept asking if I was waiting for someone. When I said no, she looked at me with such pity. But I sat there, ordered my favorite dish, people watched, journaled, and had one of the most peaceful meals of my life. By the end of the evening, I wasn't the object of pity. I was someone other diners were looking at with curiosity and maybe even admiration. Because confidence is attractive, and there's something undeniably confident about someone who enjoys their own company. Pacing slowly, thoughtful tone. Let me tell you about solitude versus isolation, because this distinction is crucial. Isolation is when you're alone and you feel cut off from the world, disconnected, maybe even rejected. Isolation can be harmful to your mental health and well-being. But solitude is chosen. Solitude is intentional. Solitude is when you deliberately create space to be with yourself, and you do it from a place of self-love, not self-punishment. In solitude, you're not running away from the world, you're running toward yourself. You're not hiding from life, you're preparing to engage with life more fully. You're not avoiding relationships, you're strengthening the most important relationship you have. I've learned that there are different types of aloneness, and each one serves a purpose. There's productive aloneness, when you use solitude to work on projects, learn new skills, pursue your passions without distraction. There's reflective aloneness, when you process your experiences, think through decisions, examine your beliefs and values. There's restorative aloneness, when you simply rest, recharge, and replenish your energy. And there's creative aloneness, when you tap into your imagination, explore new ideas and create something meaningful, more energetic, inspiring tone. But here's where it gets really exciting. When you master the art of being alone, When you truly enjoy your own company, something incredible happens to your relationships with others. Because you're no longer coming from a place of neediness or desperation for connection, you're coming from a place of choice and abundance. When you don't need someone to complete you, you can choose to share your completeness with them. When you don't need someone to validate you, you can appreciate their validation as a gift rather than a requirement. When you don't need someone to entertain you, you can create genuine connection based on mutual interest rather than mutual dependency. I see this in my own relationships now. My friendships are deeper because I'm not clinging to people out of fear of being alone. My romantic relationships are healthier because I'm not looking for someone to save me from myself. My professional relationships are more authentic because I'm not performing for approval. I'm collaborating from a place of confidence and genuine contribution. Hey, sharing a personal story. There's a story I want to share about my mother. When I was growing up, every Sunday morning, she would wake up early and spend 2 hours alone in the garden. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just her thoughts and her plants. As a child, I used to think this was boring. Why would anyone choose to be alone when they could be with family? Years later, I asked her about those Sunday mornings. She told me something I'll never forget. Betta, those 2 hours alone are what make me a good mother, wife, and friend for the rest of the week. In that silence, I remember who I am beyond all the roles I play. I connect with my dreams, I process my challenges, I find my center. Those 2 hours of solitude give me strength for everything else. That's when I understood the difference between being alone and being lonely. My mother wasn't escaping from us, she was preparing to show up fully for us. She wasn't avoiding her responsibilities, she was gathering strength to handle them with grace. Direct address to audiences now. I know some of you are thinking, this sounds nice, Priyanka, but I don't have time to be alone. My schedule is packed. I have work, family, commitments. And I get it. I really do. But here's what I've learned. If you don't make time for intentional solitude, life will eventually force it upon you. And when it's forced, it usually comes in the form of burnout, illness, or crisis. The key is to start small. You don't need hours of solitude every day. Start with 10 minutes. Wake up 10 minutes earlier and spend that time in silence before checking your phone. Or take 10 minutes during your lunch break to sit quietly without any distractions. Or spend 10 minutes before bed journaling or simply reflecting on your day. The goal isn't to become a hermit. The goal is to become so comfortable with yourself that you can handle any situation life throws at you because you know you've always got your own back. Storytelling mode, I want to tell you about a time when this really saved me. I was filming a movie in a remote location, and due to some miscommunication, I found myself stranded at a small airport for 12 hours. No internet, no entertainment, just me and a very uncomfortable plastic chair. Old me would have panicked, would have been miserable, would have spent the entire time complaining about the situation. But instead, I used those 12 hours as a gift. People watched and created stories about the travelers around me. I thought through some important decisions I'd been avoiding. I reflected on the character I was playing and found new depths to explore. I even had some breakthrough ideas for my production company that I'm still implementing today. By the time my flight finally arrived, I wasn't exhausted or frustrated. I was energized and clear-headed. That's the power of being comfortable alone. You can turn any situation into an opportunity for growth, reflection, or simply peace. Seochain inspirational build a P. But let's talk about what this really means for your confidence, because that's what transforms everything. When you know yourself deeply, your values, your dreams, your boundaries, your capabilities, you move through the world differently. You don't second guess yourself constantly. You don't need others' approval before making decisions. You don't shrink yourself to fit into spaces that don't appreciate your full truth. Confidence isn't about being loud or dominating or proving anything to anyone. True confidence is quiet, it's steady. It's the deep knowing that you can handle whatever comes your way because you've spent time building a relationship with the strongest person you know, yourself. I think about the auditions I used to go on when I first moved to Hollywood. I would walk into those rooms desperate for approval, trying to be whatever I thought they wanted me to be. I was performing even before the audition started, and you know what? It showed. Desperation is not attractive, need is not compelling, fear is not confidence. But as I learned to be comfortable alone, as I developed that inner strength and self-knowledge, I started showing up differently. I walked into auditions as myself, take it or leave it. I wasn't performing for approval anymore. I was sharing my truth. And that shift changed everything about my career, addressing common concerns. Now, I want to address something that comes up often when I talk about this topic. People worry that if they become too comfortable being alone, they'll become antisocial or lose their connection to others. This is a myth. The opposite is actually true. When you're not desperately seeking connection, when you're not afraid of being alone, you can form much more authentic relationships. You can say no to things that don't serve you without fear of losing everyone. You can express your true opinions without worrying about rejection. You can love people without trying to control them or needing them to complete you. Some of the most socially connected people I know are those who are also most comfortable being alone. They engage with others from a place of choice, not need. They contribute to conversations from their authentic selves, not from whatever personality they think will be most accepted. Practical guidance here. So how do you start building this comfort with solitude? How do you begin to unleash that inner strength and confidence that comes from truly knowing and enjoying yourself? First, start paying attention to your relationship with alone time. When you find yourself alone, what's your immediate impulse? Do you reach for your phone, turn on the TV, call someone? There's nothing wrong with these things, but notice if you're using them to avoid being with yourself. Try this experiment the next time you're alone. Resist the urge to immediately fill the silence. Just sit with yourself for a few minutes. Notice what comes up. Are you anxious, bored, restless? These feelings are information. They're telling you something about your relationship with yourself. Second, start doing things alone that you normally do with others. Go to a coffee shop alone and people watch. Take yourself to a museum. Go for a walk without listening to anything. The goal isn't to never do these things with others, it's to prove to yourself that you can enjoy experiences independently. Third, create a solo ritual that brings you joy. Maybe it's a Sunday morning coffee ritual where you sit in silence and plan your week. Maybe it's an evening walk where you reflect on your day. Maybe it's a monthly solo adventure to somewhere new in your city. Make it something you look forward to, not something you endure. A personal revelation. I'll share something vulnerable with you. There was a time in my life when I measured my worth by how busy my social calendar was. If I had a free evening, I felt like a failure. If I wasn't invited to something, I took it personally. If I spent a weekend alone, I felt like something was wrong with me. But that constant need for external validation was exhausting. I was living my life for other people's approval instead of my own fulfillment. I was so busy being who I thought others wanted me to be that I lost track of who I actually was. The turning point came when I realized that I was actually afraid of myself. I was afraid of what I might discover if I spent time alone with my thoughts. I was afraid I might not like who I was underneath all the performance. I was afraid of my own judgment more than anyone else's. But here's what I discovered when I finally had the courage to be alone with myself. I actually liked my own company. I was funny, I was thoughtful, I was creative, I was resilient. All the qualities I was looking for in others I already had within myself, building momentum, and that's when everything shifted. When you realize you're actually pretty good company, when you discover you can entertain yourself, inspire yourself, comfort yourself, challenge yourself, you become unstoppable because you're no longer at the mercy of other people's moods, availability, or approval. Think about it. If you can make yourself laugh, you'll never lack for joy. If you can comfort yourself in difficult times, you'll never be without support. If you can challenge yourself to grow, you'll never stop evolving. If you can enjoy your own company, you'll never be truly alone. This is what I mean by unleashing your inner strength. It's not about becoming isolated or independent to a fault. It's about becoming so solid in yourself that you can weather any storm. It's about developing such a strong core that you can bend without breaking, adapt without losing yourself, love without losing your identity. Hi, addressing the audience directly, I want you to imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you were completely comfortable being alone. Picture yourself making decisions based on your own values rather than what others expect. Imagine enjoying your own company so much that you never settle for relationships that don't truly fulfill you. Think about having such a strong sense of self that criticism from others doesn't destroy you and praise from others doesn't define you. This isn't fantasy. This is what's available to you when you master the power of being alone. Storytelling continues. Let me tell you about my friend Sarah. She's a successful lawyer in her 30s who used to be terrified of doing anything alone. She would drag friends to movies they didn't want to see, stay in relationships that weren't right for her because she was afraid of being single, and make career decisions based on what would impress others rather than what would fulfill her. Then she went through a breakup that forced her to confront her fear of being alone. At first, she was miserable. She didn't know how to fill the time that used to be occupied by an unhealthy relationship, but gradually she started discovering herself. She realized she loved art museums, something she'd never explored because her ex-boyfriend found them boring. She started taking weekend trips alone to nearby cities, something that had always seemed sad to her before. She began journaling and discovered she had thoughts and dreams she'd never shared with anyone because she was so focused on being what others wanted. Within 6 months, she was a different person. More confident, more decisive, more authentically herself. And interestingly, her relationships improved dramatically. She started attracting people who were drawn to her authenticity rather than her neediness. She began setting boundaries she'd never been able to set before. She found love again, but this time from a place of choice rather than desperation. Philosophical depth. There's something profound that happens when you stop running from yourself. Most of us spend so much energy trying to be accepted by others that we never learn to accept ourselves. We're so busy trying to fit in that we never discover what makes us unique. We're so focused on avoiding rejection that we never learn to trust our own judgment. But when you spend quality time alone, not scrolling through social media, not consuming content, but actually being present with yourself, you start to uncover your authentic desires, your real values, your true dreams. Not the dreams that were programmed into you by your family or society, but the ones that emerge from your own heart and soul. I think about the times in my life when I made the best decisions, and they all happened during periods of solitude. The decision to move to America, the decision to expand beyond acting into producing, the decision to speak up about important social issues, these all came from quiet moments of reflection, not from crowded brainstorming sessions or seeking everyone else's opinion. Empowerment theme. Here's what I want you to understand. Your opinion of yourself is the only one that truly matters. Not because other people's opinions don't have value, but because you're the one who has to live with the consequences of your choices. You're the one who has to wake up every morning and look at yourself in the mirror. You're the one who has to be proud of how you spent your days. When you're comfortable being alone, you stop making decisions based on fear and start making them based on love for yourself and your authentic path. You stop asking, what will people think, and start asking, what feels right for me. You stop seeking permission from others and start trusting your own wisdom. This is incredibly liberating. Imagine never having to perform for anyone again. Imagine never having to pretend to be someone you're not. Imagine being so secure in yourself that other people's moods don't determine your mood. Other people's success doesn't diminish your worth. Other people's opinions don't shake your foundation. A practical transformation. But let's get practical about how this transforms your daily life. When you're comfortable being alone, you make better career decisions because you're not trying to impress others. You're following your genuine interests and strengths. You choose better relationships because you're not settling out of fear of being alone. You're choosing partners who truly complement your authentic self. You handle stress better because you've developed internal coping mechanisms rather than always needing external support. You're more creative because you've given your mind space to wander and explore without constant input from others. You're more resilient because you've learned to be your own best friend and strongest supporter. I notice this in my own life constantly now. When I'm offered a project, I don't immediately think about how it will look to others. I think about whether it aligns with my values and goals. When I'm in social situations, I don't worry about being the most interesting or impressive person in the room. I focus on authentic connection and contribution. When challenges arise, and they do for everyone, I don't panic about who I can call or what others will think. I trust my ability to handle whatever comes my way. This doesn't mean I don't seek support when I need it, but I seek it from a place of choice rather than desperation. Addressing fears. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what if I spend time alone and I don't like what I find? What if I discover things about myself that I don't want to face? And I understand this fear because I've been there. But here's the thing, whatever you discover about yourself in solitude has always been there. Avoiding yourself doesn't make your challenges disappear. It just means you're dealing with them unconsciously instead of consciously. When you face yourself honestly, you finally have the power to change what isn't serving you and celebrate what is. I've discovered things about myself in solitude that weren't comfortable to acknowledge. I've had to face my own prejudices, my own limiting beliefs, my own areas where I needed to grow. But facing these things gave me the power to change them. Running from them kept me stuck. And I've also discovered incredible things about myself that I never would have known if I hadn't spent time alone. I discovered that I'm much braver than I thought, much more creative than I realized, much more capable of handling difficulty than I believed. These discoveries only came through solitude and self-reflection. For our cultural context, in our culture, we've somehow decided that needing others makes us strong and being able to be alone makes us antisocial. But I want to challenge this idea. There's a difference between healthy interdependence and codependence. There's a difference between choosing to be with others and needing to be with others to feel okay about yourself. The strongest people I know are those who can function beautifully both in community and in solitude. They can contribute meaningfully to groups because they know who they are. They can support others because they've learned to support themselves. They can love deeply because they've learned self-love. This isn't about becoming selfish or isolated. It's about becoming so grounded in yourself that you can give to others from a place of abundance rather than need. It's about becoming so comfortable with yourself that you can be truly present with others instead of constantly performing or seeking validation. Global perspective, I've been fortunate to travel all over the world. And one thing I've noticed is that cultures that value solitude and self-reflection tend to produce people with incredible inner strength and wisdom. Whether it's the meditation practices of Buddhism, the vision quests of Native American traditions, or the philosophical contemplation valued in many European cultures, there's a recognition that time alone is essential for human development. Yet in our modern, connected world, we've somehow lost this wisdom. We've made being busy and social synonymous with being successful and happy. But I challenge you to look at the mental health statistics, the rates of anxiety and depression, the number of people who feel lost and empty despite having full social calendars. Maybe the answer isn't more connection. Maybe it's better connection. And maybe better connection with others starts with better connection with yourself. A personal transformation story. I want to share one more personal story that really illustrates this transformation. A few years ago, I was going through a difficult period professionally. A project I'd been passionate about fell through, and I was feeling discouraged and uncertain about my next steps. Old me would have immediately called everyone in my contact list, seeking advice, reassurance, and validation. I would have needed others to tell me I was talented, that everything would work out, that I was making the right choices. But instead, I spent a weekend alone at a quiet retreat center. No phone, no internet, no distractions. Just me and my thoughts. It was uncomfortable at first. I kept wanting to reach for my phone or find some way to avoid the feelings I was experiencing. But as the hours passed, something shifted. In that silence, I began to hear my own wisdom. I realized that the project falling through was actually protecting me from something that wasn't aligned with my values. I started to see new possibilities I hadn't considered before. Most importantly, I remembered my own resilience and capability. By the end of that weekend, I didn't need anyone else to reassure me or validate my choices. I had reconnected with my own inner knowing, my own strength, my own confidence. And from that place, I made one of the best career decisions of my life, inspirational climax building. This is what I want for each of you. This deep trust in yourself, this comfort with your own company, this confidence that comes from knowing who you are when nobody else is watching. Because that's when you're most real, most authentic, most powerful. When you're alone, you can't perform for anyone. You can't pretend to be someone you're not. You can't hide behind social roles or expectations. You have to face the truth of who you are, and that truth is beautiful even if it's imperfect. You are the only person who will be with you for your entire life. You are the only person whose approval you truly need. You are the only person who can validate your dreams, comfort your fears, and celebrate your victories in a way that truly satisfies your soul. Direct empowerment, so I'm challenging you tonight, fall in love with yourself. Not in a narcissistic way, but in a deep, caring, accepting way. Learn to enjoy your own company. Discover your own thoughts. Trust your own judgment. Find strength in your own presence. Stop looking for someone else to complete you. You're already whole. Stop waiting for someone else to validate your worth. You're already valuable. Stop needing others to make you feel confident. That confidence lives within you right now. The power you're seeking, the strength you're looking for, the confidence you're craving, it's all available to you in solitude. Not because being alone is better than being with others, but because being comfortable alone makes everything else in your life better. When you know you can handle being alone, you know you can handle anything. When you enjoy your own company, you never settle for poor treatment from others. When you trust your own judgment, you make decisions that truly serve your highest good. Final stories and wisdom. I think about my grandmother, who lived to be 96 years old. In her final years, when her mobility was limited and she spent more time alone, she told me she was having some of the most peaceful, content days of her life. She said, "Beta, I've learned that good company is a blessing, but your own company should never be a burden. I've made friends with myself, and it's the best friendship I have. That wisdom has stayed with me. Your relationship with yourself sets the template for every other relationship in your life. If you're critical and harsh with yourself, you'll attract people who treat you that way. If you're loving and accepting of yourself, you'll draw in people who appreciate and value you. If you can't enjoy your own company, how can you expect others to enjoy it? If you don't trust your own judgment, why should others trust it? If you don't find yourself interesting, what makes you think others will?" Powerful conclusion building. But when you truly embrace the power of being alone, when you unlock that inner strength and confidence that comes from deep self-knowledge and self-acceptance, you become magnetic. Not because you need others, but because you have so much to offer. Not because you're performing for approval, but because you're sharing your authentic gifts. You become someone who can stand in any room and feel at home because you carry your home within you. You become someone who can face any challenge with grace because you've learned to rely on your own strength. You become someone who can love deeply and freely because you're not loving from a place of lack. Final call to action. So here's my challenge to you as we conclude tonight for the next 30 days. Spend at least 15 minutes each day in intentional solitude. No phone, no distractions, just you and your thoughts. Notice what comes up. Don't judge it, just observe it. Try doing one thing alone each week that you normally do with others. Notice how it feels. Pay attention to any discomfort. That's just your fear talking, not your truth. Start journaling, even if you've never done it before. Write down your thoughts, your dreams, your fears, your hopes. Get to know yourself on paper. Most importantly, start treating yourself like someone you love. Talk to yourself the way you would talk to your best friend. Be patient with your learning process. Celebrate your growth. Forgive your mistakes. High emotional and inspiring conclusion. Remember, the goal isn't to become a hermit or to reject human connection. The goal is to become so comfortable with yourself that you can show up authentically in all your relationships. The goal is to develop such inner strength that you can weather any storm. The goal is to find such confidence within yourself that external validation becomes a nice bonus rather than a desperate need. You have everything you need within you right now. You have wisdom that's uniquely yours. You have strength that's been built through your unique experiences. You have gifts that only you can offer the world, but you have to spend time alone to discover them, to nurture them, to trust them. The world needs what you have to offer, but you'll never discover your true gifts if you're constantly performing for others' approval. You'll never find your authentic voice if you never spend time in silence. You'll never develop unshakable confidence if you're always seeking validation from external sources. Powerful ending tonight. I want you to make a commitment to yourself. Commit to spending quality time getting to know the most important person in your life, you. Commit to developing a loving, accepting relationship with yourself. Commit to finding strength and confidence in your own presence. Because when you master the power of being alone, when you truly unleash your inner strength and confidence, you don't just change your own life, you change every life you touch. You become a beacon of authentic confidence that gives others permission to be themselves. You become living proof that happiness and fulfillment come from within. The power is already inside you. The strength is already yours. The confidence is waiting for you to claim it. It's not hiding somewhere else with someone else in some future achievement. It's right here, right now, in your willingness to be still, to be quiet, to be alone with the magnificent person you already are. Your journey to unleashing this power begins with a single step, choosing to spend time with yourself, not as punishment, not as last resort, but as a gift to the most important person in your life. The power of being alone isn't about isolation, it's about integration. It's about bringing together all the scattered pieces of yourself and discovering that you were whole all along. It's about finding such peace in your own presence that you can offer that peace to the world. Go forth and discover the incredible power that lives within you. Embrace your solitude. Trust your strength. Unleash your confidence. The world is waiting for what you have to offer. But first, you have to spend time alone to discover what that is. Thank you, and remember, you are your own best company, your own strongest ally, your own greatest source of confidence. The power has always been yours. The final pause, acknowledging applause, walking off stage with confidence. See,